All right, get everybody lined up here. Morning, folks.
Morning, Bill.
Nice, fine, hazy, smoky day in the Northeast yet again.
It's one constant barbecue.
Yes.
The sunset's
Stench.
actually beautiful, though.
Well,
Roger, the smoke must be really bad up in Lamoille.
Yeah, it's not good. So,
It's so dark we can't even see you.
all right. I got the blessing then.
all right, Lindsay, I'll await your assessment of quorum.
We are currently at 8, so we have a few more to go.
Okay, no problem. We're among friends. So. Got the footsteps. I'm at the academy today. The footsteps of the new class are walking the halls. Chris, I see they upgraded your office. Chris Burkett.
Well, I moved over into our Continental suite from the.
Beautiful second, third floor penthouse view up there of the grounds.
You know, it's adequate for now. We're still waiting for the Italian marbling to be placed in.
Watch those cost overruns.
Oh, for the tower, there is no such thing.
All right. I don't know, 10:01. How are we doing on quorum, Lindsay?
I'm just doing a little outreach. We're at 10. Oh, and 11. So I just need 2 more.
Part of the vacation season.
There's Karen. Okay. Let's do 1 check. Okay, we're at quorum.
Thank you. Thank you. With that, I'll call the August 6th meeting of the Vermont Criminal Justice Council to order and ask if there are any changes to the agenda, additions or deletions. We got that last week, so that was good. Folks had a good time to look at it. Hearing none. I have a couple of reminders I like to do up front that, and Chris Brickell will talk about this in his update, that we are planning to have the September meeting here at the Academy. So we'll have some more detail about that. Just a reminder. Also, Lisa Ryan sent out a note recently in regard to the update and review of the FIP policy. And I just urge folks to take a look at that, get back to Lisa. Statutorily, we have to review it every few years, and January 26th will be here soon, and she'll, I'm sure, have more to talk about that a little bit later in the agenda. And with that, we'll move to the approval of the meetings. We had minutes of the past two meetings. We have the July 2nd meeting, and then again the July 15th meeting. So I'll begin with the July 2 meeting, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the July 2 meeting. Somebody, please.
Hi, this is Domenica. I move for that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dominica. Okay, and then we had a second there. Okay, so those minutes are on the floor. We can discuss. Are there any changes, additions, amendments to those minutes? And Lindsay has the poll up. But before we vote, any changes? I saw none. Okay, if you're well suited, we will vote and submit, please. Okay, we have the minutes of July 2nd adopted. Thank you, Lindsay, for being proficient with our new poll. Have we worked out any issues with the folks that aren't able to access the poll?
Mostly. I think right now I just have a couple so if you're unverified and you need to vote, you need to be signed into Teams instead of joining right from the link when it asks you to sign in. And that's, if you have an issue voting, that's why the issue is there. But for right now, if you're not signed in, then you can just vote in the chat, please.
Great, and we've done that in a couple of cases, so it seems to be working. Okay, great. Minutes of July 15. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of July 15.
So moved.
Okay, moved, and do we have a second?
Second.
Sheriff Anderson and Chief Pontrian are the second. Any discussion before we move to vote? Hearing none, I'll wait for Lindsay to put up the magic screen. There it is. Okay. Please vote either in Teams or if not, through chat. Okay. And we've got the chat votes coming in, so it appears that the motion has passed. And the minutes of July 15th are approved. I'll point out that we don't have any, that was the extent of our approvals as the council this morning for this meeting. The remainder of the agenda are some updates, so we don't have any direct action items at this point. But I'm going to turn it over to Executive Director Brickell for his updates from the VPA.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Let me start with my report outs just for council's information in that yesterday, Lisa, Ryan, Mara Iverson, Lindsay, Diverge, and I participated in our first ever event of National Night Out, which is basically an organization that law enforcement entities do throughout the state every year to make community partnerships and meet with folks in their communities. We attended the one in Rutland, which was attended by, I think the number we got yesterday was about 2,600 people based on the amount of food that they served. There was great attendance. VSP was there, Rutland City was there, Rutland County Sheriff's Department. Others apologize if I'm not naming you, but other law enforcement entities, fire departments, rescue organizations, as well as other community organizations were in attendance. Few legislators were there as well. I heard some really, which was kind of nice, some positive comments towards the end of that coming from law enforcement that they were glad that we joined, which is kind of a nice testament. They're seeing us more as a partner at these type of events than as just another outside entity. And while we are not law enforcement, we definitely do support the mission of law enforcement and getting folks into and through the process of law enforcement. So we're happy to be a part of those. And I gotta really thank Lisa and Lindsay for doing the majority of the organizing, setting up and taking down of that event. It was from 4 to 7 p.m. last night. So it was a good event. We hope to do that again next year. Moving on to our September meeting, as the chair mentioned, we're going to do our in-person meeting. That meeting will take place at the Fire Academy, which is on our grounds for those of you that haven't been here before. It's a larger meeting space. We'll hold our in-person meeting, so it's nice to actually get to see people face to face and meet people in person if you haven't had an opportunity to do that. After our meeting, we will make sure that we provide lunch for folks, and then we would also like to provide a couple of opportunities for council members that either have been here before and not taken advantage of, or who have not been here before, to kind of take a tour of our grounds here, see what happens at the building. We do have a class in session that just started Monday. We want to make available our scenario building so that folks can see the type of scenarios, use of force situations that recruits can go through. So you can either participate in or watch that, get a sense of what somebody who doesn't have law enforcement background comes here to get trained in, as well as we're going to see if we can try to set up the driving course so that folks can at least, if nothing else, have someone drive them through it and understand the kind of dynamics that the recruits are having to go through to make sure that they're driving safely when they go through EVOC training. So we're hopeful that we're going to get a large number of folks that can join us. It would be great if you can be here in person. We'd love to have as many people possible be in attendance for that meeting in September. That is, excuse me, September 3rd. I just had to look over my shoulder for the date. Any questions on that so far? Okay, seeing and hearing none, let me move on to our class update. So as I mentioned earlier, day one was Monday, August 4th. We started with 33 recruits, which is really a very manageable number as far as recruits goes. We did lose 2 recruits on day one. Both of those recruits were female. One recruit was due to an injury that happened shortly before the academy starting that we were made aware of and made accommodations for. However, during that day, the injury became more complicated. That person was checked at the hospital and diagnosed with a certain issue that will require some time to heal. So we're hopeful that that recruit will come back for the next class. And then the second one was somewhat of a, I guess, a physical perhaps concern, but I think really more of a non-mentally prepared to be here. So that person elected to resign as well. So we are at 31 currently. Hopefully we'll keep that number as stable as possible, but everyone else seems to be, acclimating fairly well to their first week here. During day one, just so council members are aware that we have Rutland Regional who is on site for any potential injuries. We also have Jason with us from O2X that monitors for injuries. I will say that this was the first class that has been run by our new TC group, which consists of Chris Bataille, Adam Murak, and Dan Pennington. Dan's had some experience with level 3 training, but has mostly had the responsibility for the level 2 classes. So the 3 of them are jointly taking care of this class. And I have to say that I was rather impressed with our day one and the changes that I saw. which are really kind of remarkable from my perspective, in that the stress inoculation was very similar to what it's always been. However, there was a much more concerted effort on the part of the TCs to provide guidance and explanations to the recruits prior to them getting instruction and having commands given to them as to what their responsibilities were to do, which I think was much better received by the recruits with an understanding. There also seemed to be less stress as far as physical exertion on the recruits, but it didn't minimize the simulated stress that they were under during that. So I was really happy to see that there was mindfulness in the way that the recruits were dealt with this time. I heard a lot of positive feedback. And in addition to that, the TAs who come to us from outside agencies, who very often come down during 1 week during the scheduled class, but on day one, the majority of them come down to assist us with the movement of the initial class. And the TAs were briefed before this class on some of the differences of what our staff was looking for, and responded phenomenally. They were really attentive to what the TCs were looking for. What I noticed even in the gym was where some of the recruits were either gigged for things that they were doing wrong and were doing PT as a result. The TAs and our TCs were doing the PT with them, which I know has happened before, but I haven't observed it before, and it was much more evident this time around. So I want to thank them for their engagement with this recruit class. I think it was pretty well received, and that's what I'm hearing from the TAs from the outside as well. That said, one of the things that I still see with recruit classes coming in is more a lack of preparedness for folks coming in. And we can't address that any more so than we're already doing. We have a pre-workout plan for anybody that's planning to come to the academy so that they know what's expected of them and they can prepare for what they're going to be facing when they come here. It's all gone over with them at orientation 3 weeks before they even come to the academy. Jason, who is with us again as a representative of O2X for our officer wellness component, who also is great at, being an observer for folks that might be struggling with any kind of PT issues. Jason is part of our orientation team. He meets with the recruit class before they come in. He provides them his email direct, asks for any questions or concerns that they have prior to coming here. And he has gotten absolutely no feedback from any recruit that's coming here. So when we see a lack of physical preparedness or even the mental preparedness to be here for something that they know is going to be 17 weeks in duration, I don't know how to make that any better than what we're doing to prepare for folks. And agencies know it. Agencies are giving their recruits the best opportunities that they can to be here. At some point, we have to lay some of that responsibility on the recruits themselves. So that's essentially the update on the class, where they stand now. I'm going to stop there for a minute in the event that anybody has any questions or feedback on that piece.
So we have
one
hand up, Paul Talley, please.
Thank you. I'm Paul Talley. I'm a patrol commander here in St. Albans. I'm also one of the motor vehicle law instructors down at the academy. Director Burkell, thank you for that explanation, because my question that I have from our chief as well, because he's double duty right now doing another meeting, was what we had heard. Because we provided a TA down there. They were down there the first day on motor vehicle law. I got the firearms instructor, Sergeant Thomas, that goes down, and we have a use of force instructor. And I'm sure it's part of some of the telephone game of what we heard back about day one. Might not be exactly it, but what we heard was that the stress environment that usually is created down at the academy was no longer going to be allowed, and that putting the recruits through a stressful environment was going to be the responsibility of the agency, and specifically on FTO. And so that caught us by surprise. And I guess what we wanted to relay was, if that is the goal now of the academy, FTO is not the time to find out if somebody is going to perform in a stressful situation. That the stressful situation needs to happen at the academy in the basic training. And I know there's a lot of work, a lot of conversation about what is the best way forward. Is it a collegiate academy? Is it a combination of both? Is it what it is? And we do have to make some changes, but I just wanted to stress that if that was the goal, after the academy is done and on FTO is not the time to find out how they're going to perform. We need some type of stressful situation at the academy to see if they're able to handle it. So, but after hearing the director speak a little bit about it, I hope that is the case, and I hope the stress is not taken out of the academy as well.
And I appreciate that feedback. Did you have the opportunity to talk with your own staff that was down here for day one?
Yes, specifically it was Lieutenant Weatherby.
Okay, and was the impression that the stress was less than what had normally been received?
Yes, the impression was that they were told that they had to limit the yelling. But yes, that was what I relayed was the impression that we got, or that he was able to relay to us. I'm happy. I'm very happy to see that the TAs are doing the push-ups or the motivational stuff with them, the corrective actions. That's good. I just the impression that we were given was that the yelling was a lot less. It was a lot more pushy, if you will. But it was not the same of the days of the past, which nothing's ever going to be, because you have to adapt and change.
Now, I appreciate that feedback, and Ken, I'll let you address this as well in a minute, but I think what's important from my perspective is that it's important to hear that feedback and how that's interpreted out in the field, because that communication is what sets the standard from the outside about what we do here, when folks don't really have any idea of what we do here.
Absolutely.
If in fact that was the takeaway, was that the stress was less, one, we don't advocate for the first time somebody is feeling a stressful environment is when they're out in the field and they're under FTO. They face stress all the time, just in decision making here, when they're going through scenario training here, when they're going through the scenario building. There are several different components of where they see stress. If I would classify the stress as any different of what they saw yesterday, it was purposeful and not chaotic, which is what I would classify what I've seen before, when you have multiple TAs here that are giving direction without any real direction to a recruit, which becomes then just confusing for a recruit, and they can't focus on what they're being told to do. So some of the direction that we gave to TAs yesterday was pay attention to what the TCs are trying to do and model for these recruits coming in. And while we want to make sure that they're still feeling the stress of what they should be feeling coming into this situation, that what we're ordering and telling them to do is purposeful and that there's a reason behind it. So with that, I'll defer to you, Ken, and you'll give much greater detail than I will in this respect.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to, Director, that what you just explained makes total sense to what we would expect.
So just to kind of reiterate a little bit on what I had said prior to the door opening on day one in our staff meeting, the new recruits, one of the things that we've identified is that we are not necessarily for the entire class doing a good job at explaining how to start handling stress. And yet the first thing we do on day one with new recruits is we pop open the door and we immediately place them in a stressful environment where we're expecting them to be able to react in a way that makes sense, and in a way that models best practices moving forward about how to start getting inoculated to that. A certain amount of that is absolutely okay and expected, and we still do that. And I don't know if you can hear it upstairs right now, but they are pushing to the oldies as we speak. That said, one of the things that we're more focused on is coming up with reasonable assessments during scenario-based training to be able to say that, yes, they are in fact learning how to deal with that stress, so that by the time we're done and by the time they're ready for FTO or ready to start with their respective agencies, they have actually gone through a series of scenarios that actually demonstrates their ability to deal with that stress and to be able to show that they are ready for that next step. We've never really done that before. That's never really been part of the model that we've used for training in the basic academy. So recognizing that and recognizing that we can't continue to march in straight lines wearing bright jackets the way we used to in the 1700s, we are coming up with a better way to provide assessment both to the candidate as well as to the agency to signify that, yes, in fact, they have learned this part of the academy. We've never really, apart from folks dropping out, or apart from side conversations with agencies, to be able to say, hey, this person really is not going to do well in a use of force or a one-on-one confrontation somewhere because they are locking up or they're not able to respond the way the agency would like them to do so, beyond scenario-based training. We need to do a better job of that. So this is going to be progressive. And I think when you come down, you'll start seeing more of that. I think one of the big concerns that folks from the outside and even folks on day one from the TA perspective had was that, oh my goodness, we're going to change everything. That's not the case. Yes, it's going to look a little different. The product that we're going to give, my hope is, will be better than what they've received before, and you'll get better candidates coming out the other side.
Thank you both. I can go back to the chief and explain that. That's certainly not what was relayed to us. And again, it could have been part of that telephone game or whatnot, but I'm certainly much more comfortable hearing both of you tell me what it is. And Ken and I obviously work a lot together, and he knows I'm always looking to improve what we do, especially in the motor vehicle class. So I appreciate the steps forward.
Thanks, Paul. So without a doubt, it looked different.
Yep.
And it sounded different. It was not our day one. But that said, I think you could poll the candidates now and ask what kind of stress they feel as though they're under right now, and it would be the exact same that they've experienced in the past. And we're doing a better job, I hope, at explaining how to mitigate and how to work through that.
Perfect. Thank you both.
And if I could just add one more thing to that, one of the things that have gotten us to this point, aside from the things that Ken just mentioned, is, you know, we struggle with, very often you'll see people drop out on day one, right? And what's the reason behind that? Is it because they're not prepared to be here? Is it because they can't handle stress? Is it because they got here and thought, this isn't what I expected? This isn't what I thought law enforcement was going to be? All of those can be true. So a candidate can be here and totally not be prepared for what they're supposed to be ready for. But for us, we really want to be able to answer when somebody's leaving on day one. Did we even give them an opportunity to see, could they get beyond what day one looked like and that stress, and then build in the stress component as they move along, while still giving them a level of stress when they're here on day one. We don't want to be the catalyst that pushes somebody out and doesn't even give them the opportunity to see if they can handle stress, or this is the career opportunity for them. And that's also a disadvantage to agencies out there and to the profession as a whole. In, you know, we're trying to get people into the profession. We're just trying to be much more thoughtful and mindful about the treatment of people when they're here, but giving them the realistic life of what a law enforcement officer looks like, which is sometimes not pretty and sometimes very stressful. So we don't want to mitigate that and leave that out of the equation. It's just, we're trying to do it as thoughtful as possible. So anyway, end of my comments. Anybody else that had any comments to that or any questions? I'm not seeing any other hands up. So let me move on to, I wanted to just clear up a scheduling issue for folks, because council members should have on their calendar a hearing date for September 16th. And some of you might also have a hearing date for September 30th. There were 2 dates on the calendar that should have been on your calendar, but September 16th was the initial date. If you have the 30th on your calendar, you can cancel that date. And we are moving matters that we had scheduled to be for the September 16th hearing date. So we will have at least one, if not two, potential stipulated agreements for council review on the 16th. So please keep that date in your schedule so that everyone knows that they have two agreements that they're going to look forward to. Moving to that, I want to just mention once again that the Women's Leadership Institute, run by IACP, will be September 22nd through the 26th in Burlington. As a reminder, please check IACP's website for that content information. While it is a Women's Leadership Institute, I was reminded this morning that it is not exclusive to women. That is also for males or other leaders that support women in leadership positions. So if this is a program that you would like to attend, please check out IACP's website for that. Again, that's September 22nd through 26th. And then as an update for folks here, just want to remind folks that there is a death investigation school scheduled for September 8th to 11th. What I'm hearing yesterday was that we are capped at that. There was some question, again, and I just want to clarify so that folks on the council and those in law enforcement know our perspective and the steps that we were taking towards this class. There were some applicants that were level 2 certified that had applied to go to this school. Death investigation is outside of the scope of practice for a level 2 officer. And so knowing that that's the case, and this is not a certification course, there are statutory requirements that fall under the purview of state's attorneys. And that is under Title 18. And the state's attorneys are the ones that designate folks who are qualified to conduct death investigations. And that qualification comes from the state's attorney's office in consultation with either command at VSP, chiefs, or sheriffs, and whoever they designate within their office. We have asked for letters of support from folks that wanted to attend this training if they were level 2, to also have a letter of support from their state's attorney that would give us the rationale as why they felt that this person was qualified to do death investigation since it's outside of their scope of practice. And while that information went out from our in-house counsel to all state's attorneys, we didn't get any response from any state's attorneys. So we had to assume that there was nobody that was being supported by a state's attorney statewide to come to that death investigation. So if there's any question around that for level 2 folks, that's the explanation, but I'll stop here again in case anybody has any questions specifically on that. Okay, hearing none, I will just mention that we also have a use of force instructor school coming up October 27th through the 31st. Early next year in April 30th to May 1st, there is a background investigation school that will be coming here to the academy, as well as an FBI LEDA internal affairs investigation course that will be June 22nd through June 26th. Anybody that is interested in that can go to our website for that or reach out to training coordinator Adam Murak, who can guide you through that process. One final reminder to agency heads, PT is required for level 2 and level 3 as of January 1st. It's already in council rule. I just say that yet again as a reminder. I know with some folks there's some concerns about that, but I just want to mention that as a reminder. So any questions on that? Okay, the final piece that I want to update council members on, and this is really not so much for council information, but yet it's for council information, because I think it's important that everyone on the council just knows that these are some of the issues that we face. Recently, within the state, there has been some concern ongoing with a certain weapon that several agencies carry. It's manufactured by Sig Sauer, and it is a weapon that has piqued the interest of some because there is some concern about misfire on its own without being handled by a person. And the concern is such that it's reaching out, to several states, and some states are banning the weapons from their agency use. Some academies are banning the use of the weapon on their grounds. It's creating a bunch of concerns. So how I want to address this is, first, this is not the first time that this has ever happened in law enforcement. This has happened before with several other weapon manufacturers. The issues sometimes take on a life of their own and become an issue that is not based in science, but based in folklore. So I'm not minimizing the potential hazard. What I am saying is that, and I'll let Ken address this in greater detail, but Ken, being the person that he is, and knowing that we have the safety of all recruits that are coming through, whether it's level 2 or level 3, that might have that weapon that are going to be coming to the range. Because there's that concern, we want to address that concern as best as we can. So Ken has made arrangements to address that concern. And Ken, I'll let you speak to that because you'll do that again in greater detail than I would be able to do that. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. So just real quick, I guess, information sharing. There are several agencies throughout the state, or excuse me, throughout the nation that have experienced what we now call, or is now being termed as, an uncommanded discharge of a firearm. This is specifically the Sig Sauer P320 variant with the removable file control unit. So what's happened is a variety of different agencies throughout the nation have either put on hold their use, have suspended the appropriation of, or have refused to allow those firearms on their ranges until further study and further exams have occurred. There are a couple that have already gone forward with FBI in Michigan. There's an interesting report that's out there now. Washington State Post has an interesting report out there. SIG is at the same time trying to get to the bottom of what all those issues might look like, but in an abundance of caution, and knowing that we're going to have a level 2 school starting in September and a full-time basic school that'll be on the range also later on, I believe the first week of October. I reached out to SIG, who is very amenable. They are going to be sending an armorer to our facility when we have all those weapons in our armory, and they're going to do a mechanical trigger and gauge safety test for each of the firearms that are going to be going to the range that are their manufacturer. I'll be sending them the serial numbers of those weapons prior to going down. They'll come out, they'll actually do the gauge, they'll do whatever look at those weapons is necessary to sign off and give us documentation that those firearms meet the tolerances that they should before they go down to our range. At this time, that's, I feel, in conjunction with Chris Burkett, our general attorney, will be able to straight face say that, yes, we've done our due diligence where these firearms are concerned before they go to our range. Apart from making a blanket, no, we're just not going to have them down there. The firearms instructor staff is aware of these issues. They are up to speed. We're continuing to have those conversations. We have a firearms instructor school occurring on the 18th through the 22nd of August, where I'm sure this will come back up again. If there are concerns or other mitigating options that we haven't thought of, please let me know. For right now, this seemed to be the most logical step until we have something of further concrete determination from someone saying, yes, there is in fact a problem with these firearms, or no, there is not. To be cautious, recognizing that we have a lot of people on the range, and given the severity of the potential occurrence, we're just doing our best to make sure that we mitigate all of that ahead of time. If there's any questions, I'm happy to chat about that.
Ken, just a question for me, because I don't know, how prevalent is the 320 in the law enforcement community in Vermont?
I think we're at about 30%, maybe 40% at this point throughout. And if we're just looking at agency, in terms of agency size, I know state police currently fields all of the P320 series on their troops, and a variety of other agencies throughout. I think the vast majority are probably still Glock, and there are probably still some Smith & Wesson M&Ps still out there. So we're less than half.
Okay, but it's still an issue. So yes, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Ken on this matter? I think we're all just watching to see what happens with the investigations and the studies, etc. So, all right. Director Brickell, do you have other items for your report, or are we prepared to move on to your update on NTN?
We're prepared. In 1 second, I just want to know if Ken could address
Okay.
the issues that I am seeing in the chat on the 1911s in Prohibition on the Range from Chief Romei.
Let me look real quick and see if I can see it.
Just if there's a prohibition on 1911s on the range.
There is still, yes.
Thank you. And to address one other issue in the chat that I see Sheriff Marcoux has raised, I would maybe opt for our general discussion to bring that topic up there, so we can just get through our topics and then go to that concern that Sheriff Marcoux has raised in the chat as well. So
Thank
with
you.
that, Chair, I'm happy to move on to the NTN update.
Please do.
So moving to the National Testing Network update. This is not a go down the rabbit hole. I just want to provide some basic information. This is the test that the council approved after much scrutiny by the entrance test working group. I know that there have been a couple of bumps just with agencies trying to get folks registered or understanding that process. So I know Lindsay's prepared some documents that she's sent out to the council for review of the NTN requirements, but I just want to make a couple of points on this, that what the testing consists of is actually 4 components. The written test that they have has a component of a video score, a writing score, and a reading score. Those 3 components are the tests that are proctored by an NTN associate. Then there is the 4th component, which is the PSSA, which is the public safety self-assessment that the recruit is required to take. All 4 of those components are what make up the entrance test requirement to get into the academy. All 4 of those components have to be passed. If one of them is failed, then it's a test failure. The person will then have to retake the test at a future date. The scoring that we have right now is based on a cut score that is based on national standards because we don't have any Vermont data yet. So the video score is set at 55 for passing, the writing score at 65, and the reading score at 65. Again, those are based on national standard numbers, and they are to make sure that we're mitigating any disparity issues that would come up for folks that are taking the test. So when we get a sampling size that in conjunction with NTN that we think is a sample size well enough to revisit those cut scores, we will likely do that. But for now, we are setting them at what the national standards are. The PSSA is, I don't want to say it's similar or equated to, but it is a safety self-assessment that basically goes through several things that a recruit will have to, take a look at for themselves. And those, the dimensions that are actually looked at are group bias awareness, appropriate use of force, commitment to equality, and integrity. And these are assessment scores that do take a bit of time. So the entrance test, the written portion that recruits are taking lasts about 2.25 hours for a recruit to go through that. And then the PSSA test is given up to 2 hours, but most recruits pass that within about a 30-minute time frame. That's what we're hearing from NTN. Agencies, to get your folks signed up, all they have to do is provide us with the name, email address. The information is put into NTN's database by us. Then the recruit actually gets the invitation to sign up and to take the test. Lindsay has been putting out several emails to agencies correctly identifying any concerns that they have, and then also putting them in direct connection with any questions that they might have with NTN. We were in our initial outlay to agencies when we sent our email out and how to go about signing folks up for the entrance test. We felt that there were some dates that were set up by NTN to meet with agencies ahead of time, and that was supposed to be for informational questions that agencies might have. And it appears as though it sounds like more of it was designed around a sales awareness for agencies that might want to either sign up with NTN or use their additional services that they do offer for background investigations for applicants. So we had those discussions with NTN, made sure that we wanted to clarify that what agencies were expecting were information and not the sales pitch. So I think we've got those issues addressed. Again, these are like with any new process, there's going to be bumps until people get the process down and get it expected. But again, the entrance fee for taking that test is $30, which is statutorily assigned. The test actually costs more than that to take it and complete it, but agencies are not paying any more than that $30 fee. And again, the agency fee that an agency would be required to pay if it had not gone through us in our contracting would have been absorbed by the agency, and we're paying that agency fee from the council. So that is not anything that you're responsible for. That's really kind of the brief overview. I wanted to leave a little opportunity for any questions that might arise around that or problems that people might have had. And Lindsay would probably best be the person to address any specific concerns, if there are specific concerns from any law enforcement partners or council members that are on the meeting today.
Chris, I have a question. I think we may have talked about this in some of the due diligence and work with NTN. Do they have provided any assessment, or could they, given the projected likely flow of candidates taking the test in Vermont, when we would hit a threshold where the cut points would be able to be determined based on Vermont experience, not simply the national experience at this point?
Yeah, and I think I'll defer to Lindsay just because she has constant communication with this office, and also she can provide you with an update essentially of the number of tests that have already been taken and what we're seeing for results that are coming in. Lindsay, I will defer to you.
My apologies. My camera's off because processing is, my computer is not liking me today. So in answer to your question, I don't have a timeline yet as far as Vermont data. I know with our previous written entrance, that data was, it took almost, I think even off 10 years of data, we still had a very limited data set to make qualified decisions. But for right now, with the national standards for just to make sure there's no disparate impacts, that was the route we went with. They are willing to work with us whenever we want to set our own Vermont cut scores, whether we want to do it as a whole score or in segments as it is now. And my apologies, I cannot pull up the data right now just because of my computer is not enjoying multiple screens up, but I will send it out to the council so you can see what the demographics and statistics are right now for the test, just to see how many we have going that have currently taken it, that are signed up, and where they're testing from, and the general demographics behind that.
Great, thank you. I expect that it's going to take a while. So it's not something after a couple of years, certainly more than 5, but along the way, if we have the ability as we're accruing experience in Vermont to correlate that with the national standards until we hit a threshold where you can build the model. So, but at any rate, it's good. I'm glad that you have the data, and we're starting to accrue some, and we'll begin to accrue more of that experience as that test is fully implemented. Are there any other questions for Chris or Lindsay?
If I could just update a little bit, Chair. I have some notes from a meeting we had the other day. in which Lindsay provided that there had been 25 tests that had been taken thus far with one failure. That failure was from an out-of-state candidate, and it was the PSSA component. It was a failure in that test. Looking at these handwritten notes, I might mess this up, but it looks like for the Vermont test, 65.9% has been taken by folks that identify as white, 4.26% as Native American, 4.26 as Asian American, 6.38 Black or African American, 10.64 Hispanic or Latin, and 8.5 undisclosed. And of those tests, it looks like 89.98% were taken by males, 14.89% by female, and 2.13 undisclosed. If that helps.
Thank you. We'll have more data, I'm sure, as the test rolls out. So very good. Thank you. I'd like to move now on to the Alternative Pathways Working Group update. And Tim Lueders-Dumont is here. I see him on the list. And Tim, if you're prepared to provide an update for the group and let them know what's been going on.
Absolutely. So yeah, I just sent in the chat, you can see we've met 4 times, actually in less than last month, meeting once a week, Wednesdays 2 to 4, including today. So feel free to listen in today if you want to hear what we're working on. Really excellent working group that I'm really, proud of kind of some of the stuff we've done already. Just a couple highlight points, and then those of members that are on the working group can feel free to pitch in. But one of the things that we have to deal with is these 2 legislative questions from a few years back. And so we'll address those 2 questions. And Karen said it really well. Basically, we're going to answer those questions the way that's the best way to answer them, as opposed to perhaps the narrowness of what was originally intended. And there's a brand new legislative group since the time the questions were initially asked, and we're looking at Butch Shaw here. We won't offend any prior representatives because the building's pretty new as opposed to 5, 6, 7 years ago. But one of the things we've been talking about is the 2 legislative questions. You'll see that in some of the materials here. I won't repeat them here.
You will be doing that, and
excuse me, sorry. One of the things that we're working on today is just defining alternative pathways. Like, it sounds like a threshold issue, but defining what that is for us is going to be an important and adopted definition. Guiding principles, maybe 5, 6 guiding principles to help us on our way. We've kind of been dancing around some of those. And then the Academy has sent out a series of surveys, well, really one survey to different groups, non-law enforcement, law enforcement level 2, level 3, and then agency heads. And thank you to all of those that have been filling those out. It's helpful. It's not like the be all end all. It's just information that can help. And even last week when we were going over some of the things, we said, oh, we could have tweaked this here and done this here. So not a perfect survey. And we're really happy. We've been working with Community College of Vermont in sort of vetting some of that, sending it out to those folks too. But we may do another survey in the future closer to the fall. Our goal is to have a report in the works for the fall, for October. And another really important piece is just kind of identifying who do we need to hear from, who, the expert list of, hearing from people that, hey, here's this thing that we could be doing to assist with not changing the consistency and quality of testing and certification, but how do we deliver it and what things need to be in person versus broadening the scope. As we all know, there's certain things that we already have completely remotely and certain things that we absolutely will always have in person. So the discussion's been really very, very helpful. The Academy staff that have been showing up have been a huge part of that conversation. Ken, Lindsay, Lisa, Chris and Bill and others. So it's been I'm very pleased with it. And I see my role as the chair, just facilitating that. I'm not a law enforcement officer. I work with, law enforcement officers in our department. But I really see myself as facilitating the conversation and trying to get the conversation to a point where we're making progress on it and have something that we can actually be like a helpful guiding light for both the legislature, but also for the larger council. Like here's where we're at. And it really builds off of prior work. The level 2 work that just wrapped up as well from Sheriff Anderson was really helpful as well. But it's been a good iterative process, and we're meeting once a week. So it's, constant. It's not like we sit for a month and we come back. And I think that's been helpful from my perspective. But I don't know if I missed anything, Bill, from your notes.
No, I'm certainly open if folks have questions, but I would say that it's one of the decisions that we made early on was to meet weekly to maintain that momentum, and it seems to be working, and there's been great progress, if you will. I think these things don't, as you know, they don't happen overnight. And so we're laying the foundation and clarifying and identifying some important concepts that, as Tim pointed out, there are 2 legislative questions that have to be addressed, but also equally important, we're going to look at them from the lens of today and what the best approach is. Butch, I see you got your hand up. The mic is yours.
Oh, you're muted, Butch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tim, I want you to know that anything you say about previous actions of the legislature are fair game. I'm not easily offended, and it's sometimes better to have outside eyes look at some of the work than people that were directly involved. So thank you for that comment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, and the things change too. The kind of the thinking, and I think with the legislative the approach at the time that made it into statute, it still indicates we still have the same issue, right? And the question is, how do we interpret how are we going to move forward on this? And quite honestly, the legislative elements really push the question. So it's something that has to be done. It's important to have that basis to, in a sense, require us to address the question. A bit overdue at this point, but better late than never, relative to that. So,
and Bill, one thing I was just going to mention is if people on the larger council have hey, you should really talk to this person. Here, I'm best friends with the person that runs the alternate pathway in this state. Please send those names over to myself because we want to hear from those folks. And there was a report done in April that discussed some of the options in there, and that's as a part of our materials and I forget the folks that exactly worked on that, but it's a helpful kind of starting point block, particularly for me, who's not a law enforcement officer, to say kind of what's happening in other states, what are we already doing? And one of the things that Chris and I and Bill have all talked about is, are there things that are not going to cost us much that we could start utilizing in the not too distant future? And what new things are we interested in that would absolutely be resource driven? We can't just lay out the plan that's sounds great and not note the resource strain if we started going down this way or that way. So it's both identifying the existing things which will cost us nothing or very little, and then the things that it'd be great to be able to do this, but this will cost money. These will be resources that we don't currently have, staff that we don't currently have. So those are 2 overarching pieces that I think drive some of what we're working on, and we've had great engagement. I really think it's a very good working group that will meet as consistently as we possibly can between now and October. So feel free to stop by today at 2 p.m.
Absolutely. And let me underscore what Tim just said. For all you out there, if you're aware from your departments and your contacts of some options, things that work, things that we might want to consider, please send them into the committee. I'm sure Tim, Trapper, myself, or any of the other committee members, that would be great to have. We're really open to that. I'd also point out that the entire council, when the internal consultants report was released in late April, we sent that out to the entire council. So you should all have it tucked away somewhere. I know it's probably not top of the list summer enjoyment reading, but it's there. And Tim put the working group link in the chat. And if you do have a chance, it's long. I've stressed this with the committee. There's a police executive research forum report that is fairly recent. I think it was published in 22 or 23. It's fairly new. It looks at the whole issue, and they have a whole number of, I think, like 35 or so. I'll call them best practices or practices to drive for law enforcement training and education. And that's a good resource. It's just something that I think, folks should be aware of. And I think that would be accessible. If not, we can certainly get some of the documents that the working group is using in our background and discussion. So, but even today, I'll point out the initial discussion that we had about stress. That's an important element of what the work group will have to consider, right? And Tim, I think, mentioned this, is we're looking at, well, what are those things that have to be done in a certain environment, and what are the things that don't, and lots to do. So drop in at 2:00. And our meetings last a while too. We don't get done in an hour, do we? I think we have a 2 hour scheduled, but it's good discussion. So yeah, thanks for that update. I don't know if Trevor's on or any other committee members wanted to add anything about that for the larger group. Trevor's the vice chair. Okay. Well, hearing none, then we'll move on to Karen, Vice Chair Karen Transgard Scott, to give us an update on the Professional Regulation Subcommittee.
Thanks so much, Chair Clemens. As Bill said, I'm Karen Transgard Scott, and I am the Vice Chair of the Professional Regulation Subcommittee. I'm speaking on behalf of our Chair, Trevor Whipple, who's on vacation today. In my day job, which sometimes I forget as I get involved in all of this important work, is as the co-executive director of the Vermont Network Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. So I just wanted to give a brief overview of the Professional Regulation Subcommittee. I'm always cognizant of the different knowledge levels that exist among council members. Those of us from the community often don't know what the acronyms mean, or we don't know the ins and outs of the law enforcement functionality in our state. And so the Professional Regulation Subcommittee is charged through Act 56 with conducting independent reviews of police conduct and to investigate complaints filed under this Act 56. And complaints can come from any place. They can come from private citizens, law enforcement leaders, or really literally any corner of our state. The investigations are often conducted internally inside the agency, the police agency, the law enforcement agency, and then there's additional investigations that may be conducted by our own Vermont Criminal Justice Council investigator. If the council, so we receive these cases, we review all the materials that are sent with the cases, and if we determine that there's been a violation, we assign a category to that violation. It can be a Category A violation, which is there's been a law broken. A Category B violation that happened before January 1st, 2025 involves gross professional misconduct with a willful failure to comply with policy. After January 1st, 2025, it includes a willful violation of the Law Enforcement Code of Conduct that was passed by this body last year. And Category C is a misconduct that's pertaining to council process or operations. And often this involves the law enforcement leader from whatever agency that we're taking a look at. There's a lot of people that are involved in this process, and I want to make sure that we mention everybody. So as I said, our chair is Trevor Whipple from the League of Cities and Towns. I'm the vice chair of the Professional Regulation Subcommittee. citizen members are Sean Pratt and Kareem Chapman. And our law enforcement expert is James Pontebrand, Chief Pontebrand. We want to welcome him. He just joined the subcommittee. The staff that are involved in this process include Chris Burkell, our executive director. He reviews all of the cases that come into that have the potential to be examined by the Professional Regulation Subcommittee. We're welcoming Ken Hawkins in his new role, who's participating in the committee. And we're also welcoming Vegar Bo, our new investigator, and Chris Percat, who's our new legal counsel. I also just want to mention we have been served so well by former members of this committee. Kim McManus, when she was with the VPA, was our legal counsel, and Jennifer Frank was a member of the council. And so we are a close little group. We get together every 2 weeks, and our meetings last for a couple hours. Every other Thursday, we are meeting from 10 to noon. Every once in a while, we don't have to meet all the way till noon, but mostly we're taking up all of those 2 hours. Preparation for meetings involves us reviewing all the materials that are sent with each one of the cases that we receive. And that takes about, I would say, a minimum of 2 hours, but mostly much longer than that. We're reviewing all the written documentation. We're reviewing body cams. We're reviewing verbal oral recordings of conversations, reading investigatory reports. It's quite extensive. And so between the first of the year, January 1, 2025 and July 17th, 2025, we had 11 meetings and we reviewed 46 cases. The outcomes of those cases were as follows. We had 3 cases where there was assigned a violation under both category A and B. We had 1 category A case. We had 13 category B cases, 3 category C cases. We had 22 cases of no findings, and I'll make a comment about that in just a second. We had 3 cases that are still open because they were returned for more information. And we looked at 1 incident that was prior to the enactment of Act 156, so we had no authority to take action on that case. I've been a part of this committee for almost 3 years now, and I want to make a couple observations on behalf of the committee and also open the floor for committee members who are present today to make comments. I have found that the quality of the information that we are presenting, being presented with by law enforcement leaders and others in our state has improved vastly. We get thorough investigations. We get all the materials that we would need to be able to do our work. And it is really clear to me that there's a real partnership between law enforcement leaders and this committee in making sure that we have the best possible people out there doing the work in our communities. The number of cases that had no findings is a reflection of the quality of these investigations. Often cases that have no findings for our committee have resulted in disciplinary action inside the local law enforcement unit. The number of cases referred to this committee are coming mostly from inside the law enforcement community. I would say fewer than 1/4 of the cases we receive are from outside citizens. I think this is really reflective of the commitment to accountability and a high standard for conduct on the part of law enforcement leadership in our state. And I want to say that we do have, we start our meetings in public session, we go into executive session to do our work, and we come back out of executive session into public session and report out on the findings for each case. Our work is the people that are examined, the officers that are examined, we hold their confidentiality. They have, we don't use their names in public. They have numbers assigned to the cases. And as you know, once we make these determinations, then you often see the result of those determinations because we're making recommendations to the full council for some sort of action. We have been, we've made recommendations to revoke certification. We've made recommendations to, what you would see as a certification or a stipulation agreement. We've also have been known to set, if we don't get there, we've been known to send letters. We ask the executive director to send a letter to the officer. We make recommendations for further training. We make recommendations for that uphold actions within law enforcement agencies. So we really are working in partnership with the law enforcement leadership and with the full council to make sure that the conduct of our law enforcement agents in our state is at the highest possible level. As Tim welcomed everybody to the Alternative Pathways Work Group, I welcome anybody who would like to visit us in the public session to join us. You know, we're always happy to welcome any questions or concerns on the part of council members. I don't know what other folks from the committee are present. I know there's staff members present, and I didn't know if Chris or anybody wanted to make any further comments about this report.
Karen, I appreciate your report out. I think that provides a lot of information for some council members who may not be aware, but also for the law enforcement community that attends these meetings to kind of hear what goes on in the background. Well, I think one of the things that's important for me to make sure that council members know is that this subcommittee is one of the few that is made up of only council members. And there's rationale for that. And I think the biggest concern from my perspective is that the council staff, VPA staff that's here that participates in these meetings, we're really not active participants. We're there as resources for the subcommittee to review these cases. They discuss it amongst themselves. They come to their own conclusions. If they have a question, a legal question that they need legal guidance on, they can get that from our staff attorney. If it's an investigation that has been done by our in-house investigator, they can ask him because he happens to be there. But the majority of this work is done on whole by this subcommittee in and of themselves. And I just have to say I know it's hard if you've never been through this process, but for the law enforcement members that are listening to this conversation, this group is very thorough, very understanding. They have a makeup that, while some of them, when they initially came in, didn't understand police process at all, or policies, or why some of the things that are done, they now have a full and complete understanding of that process. And there's great conversation that goes back and forth. So the challenges that are faced by law enforcement officers every day are reflected in these internal affairs investigations, and they recognize those challenges and are cognizant of them. At the same time, there are state standards that we hold law enforcement officers accountable to, and there are policies and a code of conduct, which, as Karen mentioned, effective January 1st of 2025, the code of conduct came into play, but that code of conduct also constitutes conduct both on and off duty. So that is the collective feedback that came from this council and the legislature about things that were not being addressed by this subcommittee outside, that yet the law enforcement community saw as still being problematic. And that's where that code of conduct came from. So I just want to point out, for some that might be skeptical, the law enforcement community is really the community that drives this subcommittee and drives the work that they do. And as Karen mentioned earlier, the majority of those complaints that get reviewed by their subcommittee come from your own law enforcement agencies. So you're addressing the issues that need to be addressed and bringing it to our attention. So I just wanted to point that out and appreciate the time to do that.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Do we have any other questions for Karen or the committee members that are here? Thanks for the update, Karen. That was helpful. It's good to hear from this committee. It's very important, and we'll keep you on the agenda at regular intervals for any news and certainly updates on caseload. And I think we'll be seeing. I may be reaching out a little bit ahead, but and maybe this is for Director Brickell and or Chris Burkett. Do we have any action items stipulations for this month's meeting that we have set aside? Third
Right,
Tuesday?
Not for August. We will
Not
have
for August.
we will
Okay.
have stipulations that we'll be discussing on September 16th.
Okay, thank you. Good to know. Great. Okay, and then I think we'll move on. I mentioned earlier in the meeting that Lisa Ryan had sent out a note, and folks could, provide feedback on the FIP policy. But I'll turn that over to Lisa and Daniel and Kim.
Thank you, Chair Clement. I'm going to actually ask Kim to start and then bring it back to me, and then I think Daniel will wrap us up. So Kim, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. This is a brief update on the FIP policy review that is in process. It is a very brief update because at the moment we are just collecting feedback. After you all gave us the go-ahead to do that, we had a committee meeting and we set up the structure for our review. And how we have it structured right now is that at our next meeting, August 11th, so next Monday, a representative from the Attorney General's office and a representative from the Human Rights Commission will be joining our committee to provide their feedback, which we are legally required to consult with both organizations. So fortunately, they are very familiar with the policy and they were able to respond to our invite in a short amount of time. So we will see them on Monday. We then have a meeting. Our next meeting for the FIP subcommittee is September 8th. At that meeting, we have invited law enforcement and community stakeholders to, we've invited them to be able to attend that meeting and provide feedback. We have also invited folks to submit feedback by survey or by email so that the subcommittee can collect all of that feedback and provide that to the council in an oral and written report, ideally by October, so that you have time. But again, we mentioned last time we budgeted it in a little time that we might need to wait until November, but we'll see how these next two meetings go. Lisa has been just, cannot say how supportive of a staff member staffing our committee. She has handled all of the communication out, the outreach to bring feedback into our committee. So Lisa, if you could explain who we have sent out the letters and survey to and who else might be receiving reminders, that would be wonderful. Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, happy to. Thanks, Kim. So just to dive a little bit deeper into what Kim was saying, I sent an email to all law enforcement agency heads, so chiefs, sheriffs, liquor, lottery, DMV, and Fish and Wildlife, regarding this opportunity to provide oral feedback at our September 8th meeting, but also provided them with some questions to consider to provide written feedback by September 1st so that we can get that feedback in time for the meeting on the 8th. So I've also shared it with council members. So my hope is that the agency heads had sent it out to their staff and officers. If that's not the case, let me know. But I'm also happy to follow up after this meeting with the law enforcement VCJC representatives with that email. So I'm happy to do that. But the folks who are community members on the VCJC did receive emails as well as an invite to the meeting and also a survey, a short 7 question survey for you all to fill out again by September 1st. I want to talk a little bit about some of the community partners that we did outreach to, starting with the Vermont Network, the Vermont Asylum Assistance Project, Vermont Refugee and Immigration, Migrant Justice, AALV, the Root Social Justice, Vermont People of Color Network, the ACLU, and then the Center for Justice Reform and Immigration Clinic at Vermont Law and Graduate School. So again, hoping to get both in-person oral feedback and also some written feedback either through email or survey, and invite folks to attend that September 8th meeting. I have heard from the director for the Center for Justice Reform and Immigration Clinic from VLGS, Brett Stokes, that he will be at that meeting along with some of his students. So I expect it to be a full meeting on September 8th that we will use that time for. Happy to answer any questions, again, for the law enforcement on this council. I will follow up with an email to you after this meeting, but I really am asking everybody on this call to please share either the survey or their questions or an invitation to the meeting on the 8th with your respective communities so that we can get as much feedback as possible. And Kim, I see your hand up. I probably forgot to say something.
No, you didn't forget anything. I just wanted to clarify something for our law enforcement folks on the meeting. The letter that went out to law enforcement does not have a survey attached to it because we decided that you have received a lot of surveys lately. And so that letter had a series of questions, just prompting questions. So again, you can either respond by email to Lisa if you'd like to submit in writing, or appear at the meeting on September 8th. If you'd prefer a phone call, please feel free to reach out to Lisa, myself, or Daniel, and we can provide that contact information to you. You can easily reach out to me by email to get that contact information. So just wanted to clarify that in case law enforcement were looking for a survey. We kept you out of the survey business, but if you'd like it, we can definitely send it to you. Thanks, Lisa.
Kim. Thank you. And then Daniel, I'll just give an opportunity to talk for a few minutes about your outreach.
All right. Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you so very much, Kim. What an honor again to work with both. Yeah, I just wanted to add that, I'm with the NAACP in Windham County. So we had a meeting last night and I shared this information, and there are definitely multiple people that are very interested in the survey. And I'm pretty sure at least one or two will be there on September 8th. I also reached out to the NAACP in Rutland, haven't heard back yet, as well as the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance. And then earlier today, I did reach out to Michaela Sims. She is the diversity coordinator for Windham Southeast Supervisory Union. She works with a student group at Brattleboro Union High School. She got back to me right away. She's incredibly busy, as a lot of us are. She just said, thank you so much, and please keep reminding me about this. So those are just some other groups that I reached out to. And again, definitely the Windham County NAACP, which I'm a part of, chair of the education committee. There's definitely a lot of folks that are excited about this and that have some opinions that we'll be reading over very soon. So that's pretty much what I've been working on. And yeah, look, we're just really looking forward to hearing back from everyone. And yeah, September 8th in particular, I feel like will be a pretty full meeting. So I hope folks can show up for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. Any questions? Okay, thank you, Chair.
I have a question. Is there a link for that meeting that you could put into the chat?
Sure, I'll do that right now.
Great, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
You stole my question, Chief. The other observation we look forward to as a council hearing, I think as you begin to get some feedback, what you're seeing is the issue. So anything, as soon as you can, that you're able to have enough data to be confident if you're seeing any trends or issues or areas where we think we might need to be working on the policy. Obviously, we're out in front of it, and so that's good. And we'll stay there. Director Burkell.
Thank you, Chair. Just one thing before you go to general discussion. I just want to remind folks, and some might not have access to the chat in the meeting that we're on, but we do have a stipulated agreement scheduled for August 19th. That should be in your calendar. That date should be in your calendar at 9 a.m. as a hearing date. So August 19th, we will have a stipulated agreement for this month to go through as well.
Okay, so keep that. If you took the date off your calendar, put it back on. So, be there for the 19th. Okay, well, if there are no other questions for the FIP team, we'll move to the final item on the agenda, which is general discussion. We did put on the parking lot, if you will. Sheriff Marcoux had some questions, and Director Brickell suggested about PT that we discuss at this portion of the meeting. So I'll turn that floor over to either Sheriff Marcoux or Executive Director Brickell about the PT issue.
Chris, you want to go or you want me to go?
Well, Roger, you brought it up as a question, and I know we've had some prior discussions before, so I wanted you to bring whatever the concern was that you felt appropriate to the council, and then we'll let the council have some discussion on it, if that works for you.
Okay. I understand that the PT requirement is in rule. And so just so that everybody knows that I know that. The issue is it's one of practicality. We've got a shortage of police officers in this state. And level 2, I have a patrol component to my office, and that is, unless it's an emergency, it's primarily a level 3 job. But there's many jobs out there that can be done by a retiree or somebody that's got a job in their 40s or what have you, and they have a family, and they can contribute to the community or to the state. Is because this state cannot perform a lot of the level 3 or a lot of the functions that need to be done with a level 3. We simply don't have the people. So I think that in years past, we've allowed the law enforcement agencies to to take care of the PT level and standards. And I know that there are some that are folks that shouldn't be in this. I remember talking with Rick Gothier years ago saying that we got people that can't even pick up a magazine that they drop at the range. So, but my point is that we need to come together to really take a look at this rule to see if we're shooting ourselves in the foot with people that are, maybe they can't run a mile and a half, but they're still qualified and can contribute to the law enforcement effort and to the security effort of the state. And the other sheriffs and chiefs of police that I've talked to feel the same way. And I'm just hoping that we can open a dialogue to discuss this, to see if there's anything that we can discuss regarding the rules that could kind of address those concerns that I have.
Director Brickell, did you have anything that you'd like to add to the conversation?
I guess maybe just for outlining the conversation and letting council members go or other folks address those same concerns. The council rule related to the PT requirement has been in effect for a number of years. I don't have an explanation for why it has never been enforced. Some of Roger's comments and explanation make a lot of sense. Like for folks that are already in law enforcement and or retiring or what have you, they're already certified. They've already passed the PT exam. So their only requirement at this point, if they're already certified, is to go through their mandated use of force training that they're required to do every year. So I think my comments really apply to folks that are not certified and new folks that maybe agencies are looking to get in. And while I definitely can appreciate that some job requirements don't hold the same for other levels of folks, our level 2 training regimen has been, as has been discussed and vetted by another subcommittee, have been woefully lacking in the fact that we haven't had a large use of force component. What happens is during their phase 2, when they come back for training, then they get the use of force component that goes into that, and then they do the physical requirements to do that. The level 2, as you recall, very recently has been increased from a 2 to a 3-week program that will begin on January 1st. That increase of that week is going to include the full component of the use of force and some scenarios as well. So that PT requirement for us, for our mindset, is to make sure that the folks that we are going to be requiring to do that use of force work and the physical exertion that goes with that have at least passed the minimum requirement that we expect of everybody else coming into the academy. And I can certainly appreciate Roger's arguments and the fact that there are some folks that are maybe older that are just coming into the profession. Yet I can't walk away from the responsibility of if there is a deputy sheriff who does nothing, but their job is to be in the courtroom all day, and they still have a requirement that if something bad happens there, to react to it. And I would like to know, as a citizen, as another law enforcement officer, that they are competent in the skills that are needed to do whatever it is that they're required to do under those job specific requirements. So that's basically our mindset from the academy standpoint. I certainly want this to be open for conversation. I don't want to narrow the conversation because I think law enforcement is our supporting mechanism, right? They are what allow us to exist here. So their voices are just as important as the staff here and what we require folks to go through. I think what we're doing and what we're stepping into makes sense. We're making it effective January 1st, which is when the additional training would be required for folks coming into a level 2 and a level 1. I don't think that the minimum requirements are too exhaustive, but again, that's just an opinion that I have. So I'll stop there and leave it open for further discussion.
Okay, do we have any other comments or perspectives on this from some of our folks in law enforcement or beyond?
Bill, if not, I'd like to just have one more minute.
Please.
So, Chris, I am absolutely with you that people need to legitimately pass the use of force regimen. I'm simply saying that I know that I can't run a mile and a half. Maybe I can, but certainly not the way that I used to be able to when I was much younger. So does that mean that I shouldn't, that I wouldn't if I didn't have my certification? Does that mean I don't have something to add to law enforcement and to the betterment of our citizens? So, what I'm hoping for is a dialogue as to take a look at what that, if that mile and a half and the row and everything, if that can be modified somewhat so at least we'll get people thinking that, they should apply. Because right now, I'm just afraid that it's so hard to get applicants now that, well, there's a PT component, even if they don't understand it, what it is exactly that, no, I don't want to do that. If I was going to do the PT component, I'd go level 3. So anyways, I'm just hoping to open a dialogue and have a fair conversation about it.
Let me pose a question first, just to follow up on Rogers. What would those modifications be? I guess maybe a way to address this would be to entertain the proposal for discussion of what those modifications to the standards would be and how long they would apply or when they would apply, et cetera, to kind of to get to the heart of what I'm hearing you say is that there's some folks that maybe I don't have a good sense whether folks are way off the standard or they're just off the standard, right? So if there was some equivocation there about what that might look like in a waiver or a conditional process, that could address the issue. That might open that aperture a little bit. Maybe not all the way. I mean, I understand. I mean, when you mentioned, you drop the mag on the range, you can't bend down to pick it up. That's a little bit of a problem. But there must be something on a continuum in between. Sheriff Anderson and then Chris Brickell, you were about to say something. I cut you off.
I'm happy to wait for the director to speak.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Mark. I'd rather have the conversation move on without me.
Yeah, I didn't get to fully hear what Sheriff Marcoux presented, but historically we have had as a council a custom practice or policy, which I'm sure the attorneys would tell us we should not have, but that's a liability management issue, which is that level 2 has not been required to have this. And it wasn't that the council had actively said we are changing a rule. It's not that the rules committee had recommended a change. It's not that this had come as a formal proposal. It was an acknowledgement that our rules have always said this, so why aren't we doing that? And that's, I think, an opportunity for a fair discussion. During the entrance test committee, I forget if it was the chair of that committee or one of the members responding to it, but I remember vividly, not every agency needs to carry a moose out of the woods. And it was a bit of a joke towards Fish and Wildlife and the work that they do, but there are applications where law enforcement officers do need physical fitness standards, and often that's focused on the patrol officer oriented things. And this body has heard me talk about what is patrol and can we define that and what do these certifications need to do, because there's a lot of people who don't do patrol. We could talk about the Attorney General's investigators. We could talk about the medical board investigators, the Secretary of State investigators. These are jobs that are doing regulatory functions in a variety of ways. And there are things that I think are core to standards. And I certainly don't want to sit here and say we need to water down standards around physical fitness. I'm a strong proponent of physical fitness. And it matters to me from a wellness sense. But I think that there's a way that we start talking about what Sheriff Marcoux said. Do we start running candidates who would have applied out? And I just talked to a potential candidate yesterday who said, yeah, I don't think I can do it, even though this is probably one of the more leading minds on financial issues, which financial crimes are a big area that Vermont has a weakness in. So are we excluding people with access to financial information because they're not into physical fitness? And so I think it's a good discussion to have. It's not a slight on the approach. It's just the way we've always done it. Thank you.
Director Brickell, and then we'll go to Ken.
I'll defer to Ken first, and then I'll go up if no one else has conversation after Ken. Thank you.
Thank you. I think at some point it might be worth the council taking a look at the current PT standards as they exist and what the entrance standards really look like, particularly where age groups, male and female, are concerned. Remembering that we're at the 40th percentile combined right now to get into what we have identified is the bare minimum shape to be able to participate in the use of force training, the firearms training, all of the things that we're asking people to do regardless of level of training. It's at such a low bar already, and we've already had discussions about raising it to 50th percentile combined. I think we are danger close to setting ourselves up for failure for those training opportunities if we look at reducing that or not at least continuing that, given what we're going to be asking folks to do, both from a non-lethal use of force along with a lethal use of force training perspective. I think it's a sticky wicket. Mark was absolutely right. Sheriff Anderson was absolutely right, forgive me, when he said that those three different agencies that all exist and they're doing regulatory function, but they all came from level 3 training. They all went through a full boat of level 3 PT, all of that prior to getting to where they're at now. Neither good nor bad, and not here nor there, but at the same time, that basis for being able to complete what we're looking for any officer to do that has a firearm and or a badge or is running into something that perhaps they might not normally run into, they're still going to be expected to perform to a standard that we have set. We're not asking people to be able to maintain these physical standards when they leave here. We're just asking them to be able to do it when they come in the door so that we can give them the training that they need to be certified and then go to their respective agencies and do that job. Thanks.
Thank you, Ken. We have Chief Romai. Floor is yours.
Good morning. Thanks. I won't be long. I just reflect on some things that I have been involved in over the course of my life where, you know, the Army PT test, push-ups, sit-ups, 2-mile run, they deferred that for, I think, something they called the Army Combat Fitness Test, which was supposed to be more job-related, if you will. The fire service has the CPAT, candidate physical ability testing, which is pretty well validated, and it seems to be extremely job task related. And I just wonder, while I'll confess that I haven't done the row, I'm not sure how well law enforcement as a whole, not just here in Vermont, but how well we as a whole have kept up with any kind of job task validation type things with our physical fitness standards. And I'll just, you know, fully admit that a snowball has a better chance on an August day than I would of passing the entrance physical fitness testing today. But I think I am mostly effective at my job. So I don't know. I guess I don't have a stance to make. I feel like I want for the industry to be a little more job task functional in our physical fitness requirements. So just my thoughts.
Great. Well, thank you. You raised some important issues about the relationship between the test and validation against a job task. Tim, you're up.
I know we're sort of sheriff's heavy right now at the moment with Roger, Mark, and I all going, but I was just listening to this and I was kind of already thinking about 2 p.m. this afternoon because some of it sort of feels a little bit like kind of what we were talking about the last couple of weeks on the alternate pathways group. So I just wanted to put the council on notice. I've kind of put it on, going to bring this up there too as well. And Roger, and first of all, I think it would be great to also have that dive there too. If there's like an alternate pathways conversation about what Mark said on financial crime, I am so in agreement that we need more people with that expertise in the state. I'm just going to put it out there. And also with like the types of work that our people that work for the sheriffs do, and probably many of the municipal entities as well, where we could benefit from able people to the best of our ability, but also keeping in mind Ken's piece about like, hey, we have to make sure. So I just wanted to put a flag that I'm like thinking about this on that front as well, because there seems to be a little bit of overlap. So
Yeah, for sure. I think we'll encounter this. Any other questions? I'll return to Executive Director Bakel for the last word. At this point, I suspect we are going to need to continue discussing this.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm the last word, but definitely I think maybe the last piece of conversation for this until another time, right?
Yes.
It's an important conversation. I think one of the things that I hear is that, you know, when we start talking about job related tasks or where I'm going to assign somebody or what does patrol look like versus just transporting or just maybe working in a courtroom or maybe just doing traffic direction, right? A law enforcement officer is a law enforcement officer is a law enforcement officer, regardless of who looks at them. And this body is the one that issues that certification to those folks right off the bat. Where this standard was set for part of two things. One, protection and liability of the academy for the training that they provide for somebody's initial certification. We don't mandate anything once you go beyond your initial certification. That's up to the agency once they're out. So once you've completed your training and you've done that by meeting the PT requirement, that requirement is to ensure that you can safely go through the training that we're going to provide for you. We don't want to incur the liability of somebody who comes here that is completely out of shape, that can't do that training. We still see that now. We see that now in folks that are coming here for level 3 training. And it's a shame, but having said that, these are folks that have been able to pass the entrance standard to get in. As Ken said, this combined row run score at the 40th percentile is a pretty low threshold. I have seen people run, walk through part of the 1.5 mile run and do the row, and their combined score still gets them in here. So, keeping in mind, this is the threshold for us to be able to safely put them through the training that we're expecting them to have for their basic certification. Beyond that, it's up to that officer, it's up to that agency. And I just want to caution us from starting to talk about job-related tasks, because while someone may come through here for the purpose of perhaps maybe Sheriff Anderson to just be a transport deputy, or perhaps even just be a courtroom deputy, that deputy may go through for that purpose, and 2 months down the road say, I'm going to go work for Sheriff Marcoux, and I'm going to do patrol functions. Now they have a whole different skill set that they weren't prepared for, because that's not what they came into the job to do. But now they have that ability because they have that certification. Their certification allows them to do everything within their scope of practice. So regardless of what an agency might want them for, this body certifies those folks to go wherever they decide to go once they receive their certification. So I just throw that out there as an additional comment. One thing I will throw out there that I don't like, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway, is that in the rules that were just recently adopted, the council, the executive director, can waive any rule in there upon a good showing. So like, there are folks that could perhaps demonstrate a need for why that person shouldn't do that. I can't think of a reason why I would say, yep, that makes sense, but it's just another option. But I do think that this is a conversation that should be held in greater detail and with more law enforcement, feedback to understand all of those things that are reality in the world today.
Thanks for that, Chris. And I did have in the back of my mind the question of waiver, right? And there's a number of ways to approach it. I mean, if the rule explicitly says that, which it does for the ED, maybe more clarity on what the criteria of the waiver are, so there's a full understanding of what that might be. But this does sound very much like some type of extended conversation, working group looking at it. I also believe, as Tim pointed out, this is going to interface with the discussions about alternative pathways and what the requirements will be under different approaches. So it's a good issue. We need to keep it on the parking lot. We need to keep it in the parking lot, if we will. And I'll talk with the executive director, maybe some others. We can think about what the next step would be to address this. But also, I think Director Burkell made an important point here, that the rule applies, and Deputy Director Hawkins as well, that the rule applies to assure the safety and capability of the training offered here. And that's something I think, we can look at, but that's something we also need to keep in mind that post certification, the agency requirements will come into play. So, okay, well, good discussion.
Thank
Good
you.
discussion. To be continued, I'm sure. It's an issue that is, as Sheriff Marcoux pointed out, and we all know with the issues and the shortage of law enforcement personnel, we need to be mindful of how the training relates and the requirements relate to specific tasks, whether that be financial crimes or cyber crimes or other types of maybe non-use of physical force law enforcement. Okay. All right. Do we have any other announcements or any statements folks need to make? Things coming up for the good of the order? I do. There is one. Kelly. You're on mute. You're being attacked by your headphones.
Sorry about that, everybody. So I'm Kelly Pupor. I am an attorney investigator for the Human Rights Commission, in case there's people that don't know who I am. I just wanted to mention a recent article in Vermont Digger, BT Digger, that is pretty heavy on legal aspects, but there are some, I felt, intersections with law enforcement and with our mission. I just wanted to flag it for folks. I don't know if people already saw it. I'll just put the link in the chat, but I just wanted to make a mention of it for everyone to be thinking about these immigration issues that are going to continue to come up. Our office is hearing a lot from folks. We're hearing some very concerning things. Obviously, when you read the article, you'll read the statements from everyone, but I guess I would just bring it up that interpretation services should be provided. Well, they must be provided. That people, we want to make sure that people that are being housed, whether they're there for a conviction or for an immigration detainer.
It's like we lost Kelly. Well, we have the link. We've lost you, Kelly. We have the link, and that was in, I think, this morning's Digger. I think I read it there this morning. So if you go to their site, you'll be able to find it. It's a fairly lengthy article that gets into quite a bit, particularly about the lack of immigration attorneys in the state. Sheriff Anderson.
In the same thread, yesterday, the Department of Justice, U.S. Department of Justice published a list of sanctuary jurisdictions, which includes states, counties, and cities. Of note, the state of Vermont was indicated on the U.S. Department of Justice website as a sanctuary state. Don't understand any grounds or reasoning for it. I'm flagging it for everyone's attention because it came across my desk, and we at least understand the impact that could potentially hold, because we do own a policy as the council, and I know that Lisa was looking for input. My request would simply be that we have the Attorney General's office, who has said numerous times that our policy does follow federal law, and the policy does specifically say it, but understanding that this could impact law enforcement agencies and various forms of government within the state, that we just do our due diligence and be proactive. So that my request is that in a future meeting, we ask the Attorney General's office to cover that. I'm sure the FIP committee will also want to talk about it as well. I'm not an expert in those matters, and just want to make sure we have our I's dotted and T's crossed as we uphold Vermont values in our policy as a council.
Great. Thank you, Sheriff Anderson. I think that's something, that list just came out a couple days ago, and DOJ has the full list there. It's been in a number of articles. So And I'm also sure, I believe Lisa and the FIP committee mentioned that the AG was going to be at one of the upcoming meetings. So however we can be educated on what that might be to provide some insight as to prospective impact would be helpful. The list is just out, and I'm sure there's much to be learned. So, Kelly, we lost you, but your link occurred, and I noted that was in this morning's Digger, so that if folks wanted to see it, it was easily accessible.
I just wanted to finish by saying, apologies. My Ethernet completely went out. I'm on Wi-Fi right now, so worst possible time for that to happen. But I just wanted to bring it up, and thanks everybody. I'm sorry, Sheriff Anderson, I missed most of your comments or things other people said, but I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I think we've reached the end of our meeting, and with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay.
Got there first.
Tim got there first, Sheriff Anderson second. The meeting is now by acclaim ended. Thank you, and have a good day, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. We do have a stipulation in 3 weeks or 2 weeks. Sorry. Bye-bye.